Bonjour, everyone, and welcome to In Bed with the Fitness Industry. I am Nathalie Lacombe, your host, your coach, and your Cupid for the fitness industry. It's my absolute pleasure to be here in support of your thriving careers and businesses. And I have, once again, a very special guest, dear friend of mine joining us today. Bonjour, Christine Conti, and welcome.
Bonjour, how are you?
There to go with the French right off the bat. Well done. I am very well. It's such a pleasure to have you here today. Christine and I were just behind the scenes catching up a little bit on how long it had been since we had seen one another face to face. But thank you for joining us virtually today so that we can get some of the wonderful insights and inspiration that you have to share. Fun times we're going to have together. For those of you who have yet to have the pleasure of meeting Christine, she is a best-selling author and award-winning international fitness educator and speaker who specializes in chronic conditions. So after life-altering diagnosis at the age of 30, she made it her mission to empower and inspire others to live more quality lives by taking control of their health and wellness and grow their split-second courage. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, something you'll hear about in just a second. Bonjour, Christine. So let's dive right into bed, my friend. Tell us what you like to sleep in.
Oh, I am the epitome of not sexy in bed. Okay. I'm just gonna throw it out there.
Says you.
Give me some sweatpants. Give me a large t-shirt, like a 2XL, and maybe some of those big socks that are real fuzzy, and a sweatshirt. I am in heaven.
And you're a happy camper. Excellent.
So I apologize for everyone that was looking for the negligee and the nightie and the satin. Listen, you're going to get me either in the buff or I'm going to be in my sweatpants and sweatshirt. There's no in between.
I'm sure both are sexy. I will state that to the world right now. And tell me a little bit about your preferred go to sleep time, your preferred wake up time.
If in an ideal world, imagine rainbows and unicorns. Every night I would be in bed at 10:30. I would lie my head on that soft pillow and be out like a light. And then I would sleep all the way until like 7 a.m. where I'd jump out of bed, like both feet on the floor, ready to conquer the world. That would be ideal. I mean, as close as I can get to like 11, maybe 11:30, after being working for other people my entire life before I left and entered whatever it is, the craziness of being an entrepreneur
of this,
whatever this is. I was always on other people's schedules. So it was, I'd be getting up at 5:30 in the morning and, working or having kids and not going to bed until late. And those joys of having little kids that would get up in the middle of the night. I mean, there's about at least 15 years of, I don't remember things because I was so tired, and I know that a lot of people get it out there where you're like, what just happened? But ideally, I'd like to go to bed at 11 and try and wake up at like 6:30 is my
that's what you strive for. That's your sweet spot that you strive for as often as possible. Fair enough. Well, thank you for sharing that. Listen, you're already telling us a little bit about your own story and your own life and your personal story. And it's something that I noticed that you embraced really early on, something that's included in your bio that people can see in different places that you've always been upfront about. You've used it to truly connect with others. Your own personal story, is that something you've always been comfortable with, or is that something you needed to embrace?
Oh my, I needed to embrace that. I needed to. And there's so many people out there. I don't care what you do, whether you're in the fitness industry or anything, that we don't realize how important the story is, how important it is to own who you are. Because there's so many people out there that feel alone, that feel like, I always called it, I used to live on Christine Island, where I I thought that, keeping things in and not sharing my struggles and
Mm,
not talking about the dark places that your mind goes sometimes. And, I thought that as being weak, as people thinking, well, wow, you know, I'm not going to look up to her or listen to her because she doesn't have it all together. And I
mm,
think that putting up that wall, that persona, I call it putting up your social media where
mm.
everything is supposed to be, oh, every day is wonderful and I have a million clients and all these things are going great. Look at all my stuff and look at how great I look. And honestly, everything is just a filter. And I think in this society, we've embraced the filter. And now it's time to take the filter off and
Literally and figuratively.
literally and figuratively and say, this is who we are. And guess what? I'm not perfect and I do not strive for perfection because that is going to be the death of you. There's no such thing. And when I remember as even banking, when I was investment banking, they always said one of the things that they repeated over and over as a woman, when you are in a business setting or a business meeting, you never show that you are vulnerable. You never show emotion. You never react. And if you don't cry ever at work,
Mm, mm.
ever. If you're going to cry, you're going to go into the bathroom and stick your head in the toilet bowl for a little while or pretend that you're having an allergic reaction because that shows weakness and it shows
Mm.
that people can't trust you and you're not
Oh,
strong enough. And
oh.
then when I went into teaching, I taught English and was a professor and whatnot for 16 years. It was, you are here and the kids are here. And I taught older kids, like, 17, 18 years old and older. And
Mhm.
it was, you need to be strong for them was how it started.
Mm.
Not you need to show them that you also struggle. And I think that once I really embraced the fact that, you know what, there were days when I was feeling really bad and I was going through different, cocktails of medications and
Mm,
chemo and this and that. And
mm,
I would never talk about it at work because I didn't want people to think I was weak and I
mm,
couldn't do things. And it wasn't until I realized that I'm not happy living this way.
mm.
And I'm not happy pretending that everything's okay because it's not. And that was a huge wake up call for me to say, you know what? This doesn't feel right. And I'm not sure what the future holds. And
Mm.
it's super scary. And I, I don't I don't know if this is, whatever I feel like I should be doing in the world. I don't know that what I do now is not a job. Like I made up exactly
Mm.
what I do.
Yeah.
People are like,
Yeah.
how do I do what you do? I'm like, um, decades of research and
And duct tape.
yeah, and a lot of crazy Gorilla Glue,
Yeah.
a lot of failing and a lot of meeting people that
Mm,
pull you up and then pulling them up.
mm,
Um, but I thought that was one of the big lessons, I think, going through this, that I never embraced the fact that my, my disease and the things that I've been through in life that are not so shiny are gifts that
it's
need
so
to be
interesting.
shared. They need
Yeah.
to be shared.
It's so interesting you talked. I mean, one of the things that kind of lit me up when you talked about something was the concept of trust. I mean, to not show weakness. I mean, things are there, but it sounds so now today, to me perhaps sounds so counterintuitive to think you need to fake it in order for people to trust you, right?
Mhm.
Especially because you've created these phenomenal programs that supports the health of people with different abilities,
Right.
and different challenges, including people that are often neglected from the fitness industry. I would think that your integrity and authenticity helps build the trust in order for those people to gravitate towards you? Is that something that's motivating? Is helping people who are often neglected something that motivates your work, your program design, and the way that you help people?
It's a voice. Exactly what you're talking about is
Mm,
giving people a voice. One
mm,
of the most important things that we want in life, just as a human, is to feel that we matter, to feel that I have a purpose in life. And there's so many people that, you talked about that may not be quote unquote fit or look a certain way.
mm,
And there's people out there, 1 in 4, I just throw this out. So in the United States, just alone, 1 in 4 people have one or more forms of chronic disease. That's
mm.
that's crazy. And adults. So I'm not talking about people 65 and older. I'm
Right.
talking 18 and older have one or more chronic diseases. And we
Mm,
forget chronic disease can be, yeah, it can be cancer, it can be arthritis, it can be an autoimmune, but it can be an eating disorder. It can be obesity. It can be alcoholism. And these are the things you're like, wait, whoa, that's like chronic disease? Yeah, it is.
mm, mm,
And when we talk about serving this majority of people, because what is it? Only, only 20% of people actually exercise, right? Those
mhm,
other 80% in there lies this category of people that may not even be able to get to a gym.
mhm,
Maybe they are at a point where maybe they could even be someone who's an amputee with one leg. A lot of the fitness and a lot of what we teach does not include that demographic.
mhm.
And we want to be inclusive and but how do we give them a voice? How do we say, this is something that you can do? And when it really changed my way of thinking, because I
Yeah.
grew up as a high level athlete. I played volleyball in college. I got to, play with some national teams around Europe. And I always thought that was fitness. Like you have to kill yourself and lift heavy and this. And I remember getting sick and saying, you know what, I don't even think about that anymore. I just want to be able to be out of extreme pain and be
Mm.
able to walk and be able to reach for things. That
It's
to me
interesting.
is
Yeah.
fitness.
Yeah. It's interesting, you see it as, and I understand how you and I, potentially because we've been doing this a really long time, potentially because we've done the help fit people get fitter for a
Right.
lot of the years in our
Mhm.
career, and as we ourselves perhaps go through illness, or perhaps go through disease, or perhaps
Just getting
as we
older.
age go through different, yeah, just getting older and everything else. But I imagine, so for me, that's opportunity. That said, I imagine for people who did a certification for quote unquote seemingly healthy adults, that is overwhelming. So how do we help start to move the needle and the percentage of fitness professionals that feel comfortable working with people who have chronic disease or illnesses or conditions?
First is just overcoming that fear of
Mm,
they're different or they're being afraid. Because let's be honest, sometimes when you hear, let's take away fitness for a second, when you hear someone has been diagnosed with something, cancer, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, MS, there's a lot of people that step back and they're afraid, their own fears of dealing with hurt or dealing with something uncomfortable
mm,
causes them to pull back.
yeah.
And I think that's the number one thing, is to realize diseases don't define people. I'm the
Mm,
same person I was before being diagnosed with something. I have a lot of friends and clients that have different diseases. They're the same people inside. This is just our shell. And
mm,
that's the first thing. Realize that they still want to have fun and they want to laugh and they want to smile. There's number one. The second thing is that if, this demographic, I mean, it's insane. The amount of people now retiring at like age 65. are saying that they have like 30 years now to live because people are starting to live to 95 or something
Yeah,
like that. And I'm like, whoa, that's a
a lot of
big
time.
chunk of years.
Mm,
And what are we doing to serve them so that they do live quality lives? Number one is, let's start reading research. That's one of the first things I did, was
mm,
getting into this. Was, okay, I know that this is what I have, and I'm going to go down swinging, and I'm going to do everything I can with exercise and nutrition and sleep and stress relief and you name it. I started researching, and I would go on PubMed.com. I
mm,
would go on different websites of real research, not the internet, not Instagram, actual research. I started following the American medical journals and the British journals and everything all over the world. What's the research saying? What are
mm,
people doing? Then I started looking at, like at CanFit Pro, at IDEA, at what are these people doing that are supposed to be representing the creme de la creme?
mm,
Are they serving this population? What are they
mm,
doing well? What are they not doing well? And
mm,
now I sought out doctors, exercise scientists, people that may not have necessarily been in the fitness industry per se, and started reading what they were doing. And a lot of it came from physical therapists and also behaviorists,
mm.
combining the way that they communicate with people with disease or chronic illness is very different than how you communicate with, like you said, the general fitness population.
Mm,
And talking to hundreds and thousands of people with disease and saying, what's your goal? What are
mm.
you comfortable with? What if we try this? And then going out and getting certifications, and then which led me to be able to write certifications for arthritis and chronic illnesses, to share that knowledge. But
Mm.
you can't
It,
grow unless you educate yourself.
yeah, it's interesting what you talk about, and I think we are beautifully positioned as fitness and wellness leaders to help, and it's a word that I'm hearing more and more of, to help health span match lifespan.
Mm-hmm.
Because right now there's a, and I mean, when
Oh
it was
yeah.
10 years and then it's 20 years, and now to your point, it could be 30 years of your lifespan being longer than your health span. And who wants to live without health for 3 decades, right?
No.
So yeah, so starting to look into these things. And it used to be like, special populations. Now I'm like, actually, it ain't that special. It's the ones, but to your point, in terms of statistically, depending on the age group that you look at, or depending on population you look at, it's not special. They're not special, the populations. They're actually not as unique, or it's much more common than we ever thought we would. Like you said, when we start including physical challenges, mental health challenges, etc., then it starts to become much, much, much more common, and opportunities to, like, I love that. Start doing some research, see what interests you, because you can't learn everything for everybody at the same
Right.
time.
Right.
And so, you did some stuff related to cancer, and like you said, with arthritis and chronic conditions and things like that. And then it gave you I imagine, confidence to then start stepping into other places, and the trust. Going back to what you
Right.
talked about at the beginning, people trusted you that if they brought another condition, you would be well prepared when serving them, right?
Yeah, and you know what I would say too is that many, as a trainer, as someone in the, fitness professional, it's okay not to know something.
Hmm.
And when someone, I think this was important that I've learned, think about maybe your parents, right? If you have a fitness professional who went through, let's say, a 2-day personal training certification, and they work at the local gym, and now you have a parent who was diagnosed with Parkinson's, and you bring them, and the doctor says, of course, doctors say this all the time, you should exercise. And you're like, now what? What does that mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
so say you bring them to a exercise, a personal trainer. That personal trainer, if they're not well versed in Parkinson's or have certain, certificates or have studied Parkinson's, would you trust that person with a 2-day certification in the general population to work specifically with, and I like to say parent because I'm trying to keep it real close to home. Do you trust that person with your parent or loved one or spouse? And I know my answer, it's no. And
I would trust
scares
that person to your point, I would trust that person to say, this is outside of my realm of expertise. Let me find someone who can help you better.
There you go.
That's what I would trust.
Yes.
Because I'm very trusting. I would trust that they would do that. That's trust, hope, however you want to call it.
Right.
That's what it should be.
But that's not always the case. And that's
Yeah.
what scares me in the industry. And what I see is that just because you have a general population, like, I mean, let's be honest, that's a general certification. It's great for the general public. What does that say? Again, there's some great personal training certifications out there. There are, but do they break down, what happens with various chronic diseases?
Yeah, you can't cover everything.
Right. So
regardless of the,
right. So
even
getting
the diplomas and degrees, and you just can't cover everything, right?
Right. Right.
Talk to me about Split Second Courage. What is it all about, and how does it impact your career?
So when I was in high school, taking it back to the dinosaurs right now. All right.
Stop it.
I was a reader growing up. I read. I didn't watch movies. I mean, I watched movies, but I didn't want the movie. I lost myself in literature.
Okay.
So when I read growing up, authors were like superheroes to me. I could never imagine being an author. And I'm like, so I actually went to college for business and English. And what is fascinating is that I always dreamed of writing a book. Some people dream of being an astronaut. I was like, oh, one day I want to write. But I feel like you have to live and you have to experience things and get knocked down, or just something has to happen. And I knew I never was going to be J.K. Rowling or Stephen King. That was not in the cards for me. And I don't wish that. But kind of going through a lot of things in life, I like to call it, sometimes we all get lifed. One of the, something, I guess a lot of experiences through, whether it was abuse or addiction and things like that, I went through as a child that I never dealt with, that fast forward really affected the trajectory of the rest of my life. And then fast forward, getting really sick, losing a father, like it just, all these things came together. And when I stepped away, when I had the courage to quit my job, my safe job that everyone said, you're losing your mind, Christine, you must be going through some sort of crisis. I never felt more alive. It was scary. It was just absolutely, gut wrenching at points of like, what am I doing? Am I throwing things away? My education, my mother from Brooklyn, Christine, your pension. I'm like, it was the scariest thing and the most liberating thing I've ever done in my life. And one of the things I did was I started a podcast because I felt there was something in me when I used to teach and I'd be in this classroom. I felt there was something bigger. I should be happy changing these kids' lives and I should be fulfilled. And every day I would get in my car, or I would be in the car in the parking lot, and I would say, Christine, let's go. You've got to get into that classroom and teach. Like, let's go. And I just felt like there was someplace bigger I needed to be. And when I left teaching, I felt that no one was going to call me up and say, hey, I want you to host a talk show and interview people. So my theory is that if there's no door to open yet, you build your door, you open it your damn self. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to start a podcast and give people a voice for health, for wellness, to share their stories, because I know I can do that.
Mhm.
And over 5 years, almost 5 years of podcasting, I had the opportunity to interview people from everyday people to celebrities to people that just have been through unbelievable hardship and overcome. And I have had the education of a lifetime by interviewing these people all over the world. And it gave me the idea of, you know what, some of the things that I've done and been able to draw courage
Mhm.
and and these little things, these little techniques that other people use that I've tried, I think they work. And I think that maybe this is another opportunity for me to share some of my knowledge. And the book is not just, it's not just about me. It's not a biography or anything. It is a story of inspirational stories from people of all walks of life who have pretty much face to face with death and stared it down and said, oh, not today. And it's not a book about here's what you have to do. Step one, step
Mm.
two. I
Mm.
don't have the answers, but I sure as heck have met thousands of people in my life and had to interview them, and they've shared their what's worked for them.
Mm.
So it's a little bit of what's worked for people and just their stories of resiliency. And I got a little bit of mine in there too, a little fun. It'll make you laugh, it'll make you cry, but it's what I believe is that everybody in life, we all have choices, right? So for some people, it takes a split second to make a decision.
Mm.
For others, it takes a lifetime.
Mm.
And what this book is about is what if your fears were the key to your dreams? So what if you look back and you're 85 and you say, man, I wish I would have, I wonder what my life would have been like if I,
Mm.
so, you know,
Okay.
it's really important to try, and we all have this, what I call split second courage inside of us,
Mm. Mm.
but we don't all find it until it's too late.
Mm. Well, thank you for collating those stories and congratulations on fulfilling your dream of writing the book. Very exciting, and you deserve all the pride that comes along with feeling that. I would love to know, as you're fulfilling your dream and other people are in the industry, as you look forward to the coming months, and you see what your peers and your colleagues are doing in health and fitness and wellness and even writing, what makes you optimistic? What are you inspired by when you see what's out there?
So I am forever an optimist. And I am. My glass is half full at all times. Someone could tell me something terrible, and I'll be like, well, what if? And they're like, it's holding on to that optimism, because if you don't, you're not living. We have to be hopeful. It There's so much negative in the world, so much negative all over the place, that you have two choices. You could sit here and say, oh, wow, I feel bad for myself, and pity me, and this is wrong, and this is that. Or you could sit there and choose to be a lighthouse, choose to be the person who is going to walk into a room and light the place up.
Mm.
And for whatever that means, whether it's energy or someone needs something, I feel like my job anyway in life is to shine on other people and give people a voice. And what keeps me going is that I know that there's so many more people out there that I may be able to help share their voice and get them heard and make them feel like they matter. And if
Mm.
I quit, what are they going to think? So I feel like I put this weight on myself, but it's a weight that I love carrying, because there's so many people out there that need to be heard. There's,
Mm.
like, with all the people with chronic diseases, your life is not over.
Mm.
It's time to realize that you have so much life to live, and it can be quality life.
Mm. Thank you so much for hearing those voices, for sharing those voices, and for inspiring us to have the split second courage when it comes to things that we might be uncomfortable with, and going past the fear, or using the fear as an instigator to serve the people that truly need us. I really appreciate you taking the time to connect with us today. Merci beaucoup, mon ami. And until we meet again, I hope to be able to see you soon. Thank you so much, Christine.
Thank you.